All right, everybody, how we doing? It's Alex Barth along with Evan Lazar. We are live from the media room at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough ahead of the NFL draft. We'll be doing a couple of these Q&As tonight, talking with you guys, getting ready, for the Patriots pick if they pick tonight.
Absolutely.
We'll discuss that in a little bit. We'll be monitoring the chat that's going on over there, so if you guys have any questions for us, feel free to throw them over there. We're more than happy to kind of talk with you guys. And, we want to make this about you. We want to talk about whatever it is you guys want to talk about. And obviously, we'll stay abreast of what's going on in the draft, too. And, of course, the Bruins already up 1-0. Very nice. And there's my voice as we monitor it down here. So, Evan, welcome to your Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, this is it, right? I mean, this is the big moment for me personally. I said it's like the mini Super Bowl because we got the actual Super Bowl in February. But, I mean, listen, as you know, Alex, I've been preparing for this since February, since they hoisted the Lombardi in Atlanta. It seemed like I jumped right on the draft. I was a week out watching draft prospects already and going to the combine and doing all that stuff. So, yeah, it's very exciting. It's time to go now.
All right, so the question is, how long will the Patriots make us wait? That's ultimately the question to start
here. It's going to be at least 3 or 4 hours regardless. But I think, just based off of some things that I've been hearing in the last couple of days, that my gut feeling is right now that the Patriots are targeting a few different players at the end of the first round. And if those players are not there, I do fully expect them to trade out of the first round. I think the expectation is that there is 1 or 2 guys that they feel good about at the top of the second round, that if they can position themselves to get that guy tomorrow night instead of tonight, that they're going to do it. And this is no inside information here, but I think that my gut is telling me that they're probably targeting Irv Smith from Alabama as a guy that maybe they could get tomorrow instead of tonight and add some picks.
We'll get into it between Smith and Sternberg and some of the individuals, but just kind of the draft as a whole tonight. It's this one already is sort of standing out to me because normally at this point we got 28 minutes right until we start, and so that means
they've done a great job
15,
of
43 right 43 minutes at least, if not less, till the first pick comes out. I have no idea who it's going to be.
No, the first pick is definitely up in the air right now, and that could really, if it's not Kyler Murray, my expectation is that it will be Kyler Murray. But if it's not Kyler Murray, that's going to really send the whole draft into kind of a tailspin after that. I think there are some picks after the first pick that we've kind of honed in on as probably locks into those spots if it is Kyler at number 1. Nick Bosa to the San Francisco 49ers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 5.
And by the way, I will say Joey at some point tonight. Just know that.
the San Francisco 49ers at Nick Bosa. Number 5, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looks like Devin White, the linebacker from LSU, is basically already a Tampa Bay Buck at this point, as long as somebody else doesn't jump him. I think the Giants at 6 are pretty locked into a quarterback, whether it's Daniel Jones or Dwayne Haskins, but I think it's leaning towards Daniel Jones right now. So there are some picks after that, but this whole thing could go off the rails if it's not Kyler Murray's name called in about 40 minutes here.
So again, this is the CLNS Media pre-draft show. We'll be going live a couple of times tonight, and I mean we'll talk, we'll give our analysis, but we want you guys to be a part of it too. The chat is open. I see some questions coming in. We'll get to those in a second, but come chat with us, talk to us, let us know what you're thinking, let us know your predictions, what your thoughts are on what we have to say. You can just say hello, as somebody just did. Hey, how's it going? I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. The first question is an interesting one because it comes, I think I know what the context is. It comes with no context of anything we've said.
Right.
What about Duke Dawson? And I think that's in relation to the report kind of later in the day today. This is really last second.
Yeah.
That the Patriots may use that first round pick to pick a corner.
Yeah.
Cornerback maybe being their strongest position right now on the roster.
Yeah. I think this really comes down to, with Jojuan Williams from Vandy, who's kind of the guy that everybody's throwing out there, is that, at the end of the day, I think Bill Belichick does adhere to some best player available attributes when it comes to the draft, where if they're in a position where Jojuan Williams is the best player on their board, then they're going to have a tough time not picking the best player available. And I think that's
make
where
more sense at that point to trade out.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it absolutely does. And maybe, the information that I'm getting, that they're kind of targeting a guy that's fringe late day 1, early day 2, as you would expect. Maybe they do trade out of that pick and move down, 8 to 10 spots and still land Jojuan Williams if that's their guy.
So the interesting thing for me in that is everybody says, why pick the guy at 32 when you can get him in the second round? You pick up some additional draft capital. And normally I'm all for that, right? In that if you can get a guy at 28 and you think you get him at 32 instead, fine. If you can get a guy at 50,
Yeah.
And you take him at 50, or if you can get a guy at 55, why take him at 50? The only thing for me is now that you have that fifth-year option, right?
Yeah.
That fifth-year option on these first-round picks, there's a huge difference between even taking a guy at 32 and 33. So if they really believe Irv Smith is the guy, I think that extra year would be worth reaching a little.
Well, I also think that it's interesting is
or whoever the guy
I think the
is in that
fifth-year
spot.
option to me, in terms of value, it really comes into play with quarterbacks, right? So
Right.
if Will Grier is their guy, which there's some things that have been out there that might be the case, that adding that fifth-year option onto a quarterback, I think, is really important. Now, if the pick ends up being Dexter Lawrence, I don't know if the fifth-year option is all that important, because are you really going to play a two-down player that
Right.
fifth-year option? They had this issue with Malcolm Brown just a couple of months ago. So that's where we're kind of at. I think that the fifth-year option would be nice for anybody, but I think mainly that it's really a quarterback's thing, because that is nice value for a quarterback at that spot, where you're not going to have to pay him that $30 million a year that's the going rate for a franchise quarterback quite yet.
And again, we will kind of see how that all works out at the end of the round. But, as we get towards the top, and we kind of talked about Kyler maybe being the first and the quarterbacks, and when's the run going to come? I think that's some of, to tie it all together, I'll say this, that if you're the Patriots, right, and let's assume that Murray, Haskins, Jones, and Locke are off the board, right? And then let's say somebody goes up and they take, I don't know, Brett Ripen's not going to, right? But let's say all of a sudden a quarterback pops up in the first round,
right?
That changes. All of a sudden, you have to consider Will Grier at 32.
Yeah.
Whereas if only 3 or 4 quarterbacks go, you can get a little more comfortable going into the next day. Sort of like what we thought was happening last year, right? We all thought they were going to take a quarterback, and you get to the end of the first round, and guys like Mason Rudolph are still on the board, and we thought they'll be okay in day 2.
Yeah.
They didn't end up taking the quarterback despite having a chance.
Yeah.
But, to me, what they do at 32, tight end and quarterback. If there's a run on one of those positions, I think they pick. Everywhere else, certainly they have other needs, but those positions are deep enough that they can wait.
Yeah, well, I think that the two interesting positions, that you brought up are, first of all, tight end. I think that there's a limited amount of first-year impact tight ends in this draft. I really think there's probably 4 guys that can do that. Obviously, the 2 Iowa guys, Irv Smith and Jay Sternberger from A&M. Once you get past those 4 guys, it really kind of drops off into a developmental phase for the rest of those players.
Right.
Guys like Dawson Knox, guys that, like Kalali Waring, who probably aren't going to be guys that are going to come onto the field on day 1 and be these stud, options for you. And that's a tough position as it is to produce in year 1. Not a lot of guys do. I mean, Gronk had a lot of touchdowns in his first year with the Patriots, but I think he only had about 650, 700 yards receiving. He had a lot of red zone goal line type scores. That was kind of, his thing in that situation. I think there's another position too that we could see a wild run in the second round, and that's at wide receiver.
I wouldn't be shocked if we see it in the first round.
I think tonight that there's 2 names, I think that, really 3 that could go first round at the wide receiver position. We're talking DK Metcalf, Hollywood Brown, and AJ Brown.
Okay.
Those are I think the 3 guys. I think a lot of teams have AJ Brown kind of mixed in there in different spots, and some teams have him as the number 1 receiver on their board.
All right, we got some questions coming in now, so let's get to that again. We Alex, Barth, and Lazar, we are live at Gillette Stadium in the media workroom, getting ready for the NFL draft. Taking all your questions. You guys have been great. I want to catch up on some of these, but again, keep the questions going. Share the video, please. And we are powered by BetOnline.ag. They got some great props out right now, some great NFL props. One of my favorite ones I saw actually driving over. Who's the first person, the first overall pick hugs? Is it their mom, the high school coach? Is it a sibling? Is it another player? I mean,
maybe the agent.
Mom was the favorite.
Mom, yeah.
I mean, it's got to be. It's got to be the favorite.
Got to give moms.
All right, let's get into some questions. We had a couple people ask sort of a similar question, so I'll bundle them all together.
Sure.
If they trade down and it's not for another pick, it's for a veteran.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that? And the one name somebody brought up, and this is something that came in late, was Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, so I don't know if Kyle Rudolph, I believe, is under contract for a couple of years now with the Minnesota Vikings, and I don't really expect him to get traded. I think that a guy that could get traded, though, is Cameron Brate or even O.J. Howard
Brate's a good player.
out of
He'd
Tampa
be a great
Bay.
Fit.
Both of those types of guys, I think that, Bruce Arians is not a big tight ends centric offense. So they could be looking to move one of those 2 guys, I think. But I don't know about Kyle Rudolph. I think that he's probably staying put. If there is a veteran, he's not necessarily a veteran, but he's drafted just a few years ago. Solomon Thomas out of San Francisco is a big name right now. The Niners are basically dangling him out there with a big for sale sign. I think the biggest thing is that if it's going to be Solomon Thomas, he's a nice fit in a 3-4 scheme, which is what the Patriots are usually in. The Niners try to kind of fit him in a 4-3 edge role, and it's not really his thing. He's more of a 3-4 defensive end or a guy that could kick inside to rush the passer.
And that's the kind of guy the Patriots have kind of cashed in on, the guys who are in the wrong
He's
undersized
to be a DT, but he's oversized to be a defensive
compared
end.
a lot to Michael Bennett.
Yeah, he's a little bit Michael Bennett.
We just saw them bring in, and I'll say this about Thomas, who I really liked in the draft 2 years ago, is that, and we talked about this a little bit in a previous video with Josh Rosen. Thomas was the third overall pick, right?
Yeah.
I keep blanking. Trubisky was second, he was third.
Yeah.
If Belichick can get him for less than the third round pick, he's going to see that as a win, because Thomas was valued very recently as the third best pick in the draft.
The only thing you have to consider is that his contract, because he was one of the top picks in the draft, I think he's due about $8 or $9 million this year. So it's a bigger deal. It's a kind of one that they're going to have to absorb into the cap. But in terms of value on the pick, they're going to do a nice job if they use one of their comp picks to trade for Solomon Thomas. That's a really nice deal.
All right, somebody's sending in some potential trades. Nelson Aguilar, yes or no? How do you feel about that one?
So Nelson Aguilar is another, I think, guy that could be a nice fit, but he's another guy that has a high price tag.
Yep.
He's going to make another $8 or $9 million next year. You're going to have to, do a lot of kind of maneuvering and maybe, consoling of Julian Edelman to get that one done. And he's also another guy that plays the slot a lot. He was predominantly a slot receiver in Philadelphia. So I like Nelson Aguilar as a fit. I just think that it's going to be a little bit costly.
All right, how about this? And this is kind of where the conversation, we talked about this a little bit before when I got here. But Patriot probably going to take a quarterback. Probably. Here's the thing about the Patriots quarterbacks for me in this draft. People say, they can wait. They get a Brett Rypien or one of these day 3 guys.
Brett Rypien is probably going to go late on day 3.
But here's the thing about that. And I get that he sure, if he's a good quarterback, they just did that with Danny Etling.
I think he's better than Danny Etling.
So then did they waste a pick on Etling last year? Are they going to carry 4 quarterbacks? They're going to have 2 quarterbacks on the practice squad?
I don't think that they wasted a pick with Danny Etling. I think that they were trying to get the guy in the room and see what he was made of.
Fair enough.
What kind of guy are they getting here? They put a lot on his plate as much as they could for a practice squad guy, doing some kind of film study type stuff, as like almost a scout for other teams and things of that nature. So, they got some good stuff out of Danny Etling. Obviously, I think we're really talking about a guy in Danny Etling, who I see as like the future backup quarterback, and probably get another guy that can be the starter long term.
And again, to me, that means day 1, early day 2.
I think that really, I've kind of put the quarterbacks into kind of tiers at this point for the Patriots. Ryan Finley and Will Grier seem to be the tier 1 guys for them.
And that is obviously like counting out, they're not going to get Dwayne Haskins.
Right, exactly. Those are kind of the tier 1 guys. I think the tier 2 guys, you're starting with Jared Stidham. I think that he's an option there for them at the 4th or 5th round.
Focus, because that position is what it is. There's that tweet today going around that 38 years of, did you see this 38 years of data prove that quarterback is the most important position?
Yeah.
I could have told you that. You didn't need 8 years to figure it out. But the nature of the quarterback position, shouldn't you not accept anything less than tier 1?
Well, I think that, it depends on which way you look at it. I think that if you're looking at it as a guy that could potentially develop for, 3 or 4 years behind Tom Brady, and maybe you see what you have down the road, then I don't think you necessarily need to reach on a quarterback just because it's a quarterback. But I do think that there's a pretty steep drop off from Jared Stidham, Brett Rypien, and those types of guys to Will Grier and Ryan Finley.
Right.
And the NFL loves Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley is a guy that I was kind of lukewarm on when my film study of it, and then just talking to people around the league. He's a guy that I think will go probably early tomorrow night as a day 2, pick. I thought kind of compared him to more of like a Mason Rudolph type talent, and he went in 3rd round last year, so that's kind of where I was thinking for Finley. But the NFL really likes Finley's downfield accuracy and field vision. So
again, guys, hit us with the questions. Keep them coming into the chat. This is the CLNS pre-draft show, powered by BetOnline.ag. We'll be sporadically live throughout the night after this, and we'll hang on here as long as you guys are coming with the questions. As long as you guys keep the talk going. And I mean, obviously, we have stuff to talk about. We'll keep it going, and then we'll probably come back, I don't know, maybe 5-10 picks in, give our thoughts sort of on the top of the board.
I think it'll be interesting to see, it's always kind of when you're sitting at 32, you got to see who the first 15 or 20 names off the board are.
You have no idea what the board's going to look like at 32.
If TJ Hawkinson somehow starts to slip, if Noah Fant somehow starts to slip.
But at that point, you could say if Kyler Murray starts to slip.
Well, no, but I think Noah Fant is a guy that could really slip into the early 20s.
You think so?
No, yeah.
I've just seen saw that, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden it's the other way where he's moving up, up, up.
I think that Noah Fant has a really good chance of falling to the late teens, early 20s.
Okay, well,
if you start to hitting at like 21, where Seattle is picking, you got to try to
so
think
let
about
me ask you this then,
phone.
because this is one of my favorite games to play every year, both with the Patriots and league wide. So we'll do it both ways here. What's the first pick that gets traded, and what's the highest up realistically you think the Patriots can and will pick? Let's just start league wide.
Yeah.
Last year was obvious. It was the Colts sitting at 3, and
I think
it's a quarterback was going there. You think it's 3 again? The Jets.
I think the Jets. I think so too. The Jets really want to sell that pick if they can. I think that's probably the number one spot that they're looking. I think for the Patriots, the highest that I have them moving up is 21 with Seattle, and I really think that if a guy like Noah Fant starts to slip, that they might pick up the phone and make that move. I also think that they could.
Do you think they can get inside the top 20?
I think they could get inside the top 20. There's two teams.
Realistically.
I think there's two teams that you really look at that you could probably make a trade with. I think they have a decent relationship with John Schneider and Pete Carroll in Seattle. And I also think they have a decent relationship with Mike Mayock and John Gruden in Oakland, who have 2 picks in the 20s. So 24 for Oakland. I think that's a nice possibility if one of these guys that they really like in the first round starts to slip. If not, I think they're trading out, and I think that tomorrow night they're targeting either Irv Smith or maybe even A.J. Brown with their first pick tomorrow night.
All right, again, this is the CLNS Draft Preview Show. We are live at Gillette Stadium in the bowels of the stadium getting ready for the draft. We'll be live here and then tonight. Follow us on Twitter at PatriotsCLNS. That's how you can keep post links out there when we do go live and do more of these Q&As, because, of course, tonight is constantly evolving, right?
Tonight might be a boring night for Patriots fans. I just want people to prepare for that.
It's going to be a fun night for football.
Yeah, great night.
The reason we're, you know how we normally do it. We go out on the field and we set up the camera and we do our whole shtick and all that. The reason we're not doing that tonight is things are going to change, and they're going to change very quickly.
Yeah.
So make sure you stick with us. We're at Gillette. We're on the ground. We will be live periodically throughout the night. Make sure you stick with us. Make sure you're coming back, because we will be giving, as up to date as we can give, analysis and kind of thoughts on things that are happening, how they affect the Patriots, and just sort of the general, football, what have you, of everything that goes on tonight. Again, we want to make it about you. Keep those questions coming. Here's something we should touch on really quickly.
Sure.
We don't need to get too deep into it, because it's more than a football issue. You see where I'm going with this. But, and I actually haven't even listened to it yet, but apparently, Tyreek Hill he was facing some domestic violence charges. Apparently an audio tape came out with that today. I've seen the transcript. I haven't actually heard it. I think you said you're in the same boat as me.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. Listen,
but you've seen the quotes.
It stinks that this night of all nights is going to be kind of tarred with this Tyreek Hill thing, because this is supposed to be a celebratory night of all these, stud players getting drafted and hopefully, being the next future stars of the leagues, if you will. And we're here, talking about Tyreek Hill and the potential of him getting cut or him being in legal problems. I think he kind of got off with the legal thing, but we'll see what happens, though. I think that, listen, I tried to hold off judgment until we kind of get all the information in front of us. But
as we tend to do, and I feel like people have heard me say this line a million times before, and I know it's kind of a cop-out, but we're here to talk about football. We're football analysts. This is how I want to cover it. We saw what happened with Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
There's a decent chance Tyreek Hill is not on the Chiefs roster. Let's just say to start the season. Let's say he faces suspension.
Can I make this into a draft thing?
Well, so that's what I'm about to do.
Because I have.
Is there another team now ahead of the Patriots that needs a wide receiver?
Marquise Brown to Kansas City
Okay.
starts to make a whole lot of sense, because you're starting to talk about a guy in Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, from Oklahoma, that is a lot like Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Is a guy that is very fast, can play both in the slot and out on the perimeter, can do a lot of different things that Tyreek Hill can also do. I wouldn't be shocked one bit if now they know that they're not going to have Tyreek Hill, if they kind of turn course and pick up Hollywood, because they're very similar players.
Right. And so, that's kind of where I wanted to go with that is, is there now another team out there looking for a wide receiver, an elite wide receiver, a top elite in terms of the draft wide receiver? And I think there certainly is going to be, they may have been anyway. there's going to be a lot of guys on that team do big contracts. You can't pay all of them. You got to bring some people in. They're going to be cost
they just
controlled.
gave Frank Clark that massive
right,
deal.
And they're going to have to pay Patrick Mahomes.
They're going to have to pay Mahomes. They have a couple of years until they have to pay Mahomes. That's what they're lucky for. They have 2 or 3 years really before they're going to have to break the bank for Mahomes. So they're going to be in luck with that, I think, a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see how that works. And obviously, it's unfortunate this whole situation, played out. And obviously our thoughts with all the victims. But, I'm glad you kind of jumped there before I did.
Yeah.
Looking at it from a draft point of view, keep an eye on the Chiefs possibly taking a wide receiver. Again, we are live. We are at Gillette Stadium. I know it doesn't look like it, but this is the media room. This is kind of where we sit during the week. Bill Belichick gives his press conferences right kind of behind where we're sitting right now. So we want to take your questions. We want to get your thoughts, all of it. Put them in the chat. Okay, so here we go. Would you rather have Rosen and Bosa or Kyler in a second-round pick? If you're the Cardinals.
If you're the Cardinals, okay. So Rosen and Bosa.
And that question comes in from Rensis.
Kyler.
See, I don't, and I'm a big Josh Rosen guy. To be fair, I am. I always have been.
I think that the quarterback position is important enough that you need the best player at that position that you could possibly have, and I think Kyler is the best possible player at that position.
Better than Rosen.
I think he's the best option that they can have, like right now.
So you think he's better than Josh Rosen?
Yeah, definitely better than.
He's
Josh Rosen is a very nice high floor prospect, right? Like he's probably going to be a starter in the league, and he's probably going to get by. He gets a lot of those kind of like Eli Manning, Matt Ryan type comparisons, and both of those guys have had really good times in their careers where they've gotten elevated. I think by the scheme and by the people around them. Obviously, Matt Ryan getting elevated by guys like Julio Jones to this, MVP caliber quarterback when he has a great year. So I really think that, it boils down to getting the best possible quarterback that you can have, and that's Kyler Murray. And Nick Bosa is a great player, don't get me wrong, but I think that Kyler Murray is probably the guy that they should go with.
So the only reason I'm hesitant with this is there's a reason Kyler didn't measure and weigh in at the combine and at his pro day, right?
He measured at the combine.
He didn't height. He didn't, right? Or he did, but not at his pro day.
Yeah, well, he didn't have to again.
Let me just say this: he's clearly on the smaller side, right?
Sure.
What was the biggest problem with the Cardinals last year?
Yeah, but he's also super slippery and very athletic and mobile. So he can run away from some of those guys.
Do you want a guy that small taking hits? The reason I'm not sold on Kyler, same reason.
Do you want a guy that's just going to stand there on a spot instead?
If you don't invest that pick in Kyler Murray, maybe you invest it in the offensive line. Maybe you trade back a couple spots, pick up a pick, take a couple of offensive linemen, and start to get Rosen some protection.
Right. Well,
maybe you could do something.
Listen,
like that.
I understand you like Rosen. I just think that I don't dislike Rosen.
I just think I think. The quarterback situation, the quarterback is never irrelevant. Let me be careful about how I phrase this, but even if Kyler is an upgrade over Rosen, how much of a difference does it make if you don't have an offensive line? And not just don't have an offensive line, if you have one of the worst offensive lines we've seen in the last 10 years.
How much a difference does any upgrade at quarterback make across the league? A huge difference. I mean, when you start upgrading
if the guy's constantly under pressure.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, like Andrew Luck was constantly under pressure for most of his career, and the Colts
early, and now look at what happened. Look at what happened.
They're still the same team. Team went further with the worst offensive line
because he got hit so much early in his career. He now has chronic injury problems.
Yeah.
So take Kyler, a guy who's much smaller, put him behind a worse offensive line. But he's still going to take some hits.
Listen,
I feel like they need to work on that offensive line.
But I think that they have a lot of picks that they can do that with in a pretty good offensive line class.
Okay.
That they could probably go.
So they take Kyler and they take three offensive linemen. At the end of the day,
the name of the game is getting the best possible quarterback that you can under center.
That's fair.
After that, you kind of figure everything else.
You still need it. You do want a good quarterback under center, but you want a decent center too.
But we're also not talking about like Kyler Murray, winning MVP next year.
Right.
This is a future play. This is to hopefully get a guy that's gonna build your franchise around.
All right, we got a question. I know you'll like this one because we haven't talked about this guy tonight, and he's your boy. So we know. And the guy actually here, I want you to see this because he didn't even know his name.
Yeah.
Who's better, Dexter or Notre Dame defensive tackle?
My favorite Notre Dame defensive tackle. Yeah. Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame. Listen, this is the thing about Jerry Tillery.
So wait, who's better?
Oh, Jerry Tillery is better.
Okay.
But here's the thing about Jerry Tillery. So I have been a big believer, as you know, of Jerry Tillery for a long time. To me, I'm not saying he's as good as these guys, but he reminds me of a lot of the same qualities of Richard Seymour and Trey Flowers in terms of the way that he plays the game.
Yep.
An inside-outside, versatile defensive end in the Patriots scheme, but also can bump him inside and rush him on a guard or a center on passing downs. He's obviously going to get pushed around a little bit in the trenches if you line him up at DT regularly, but as a chess piece in the front seven, that's exactly what Bill Belichick loves to do. He's going to move him around. He's going to find matchups for him, a lot like what they did with Trey Flowers.
Yep.
And I think that he's instantly as good as Trey Flowers was, maybe not last year, but kind of the couple of years before that, whereas it kind of was a slow burn for Trey Flowers, right? You know,
Right.
you kind of had to work up to that point. I think Jerry Tillery is going to be a very good player, a guy that's going to compete and make an impact right away. Now, I think the thing with Tillery is, and I mocked him to the Patriots in my final mock. I think he's a great scheme fit for the team. I asked around to kind of figure out what are some of these rumors about. And really all that I've really gotten a hold of is that there are just some vibes from him that come off as like him being just kind of a weird guy.
He's a weird dude. I mean,
a weird personality,
like,
not really the type of not
didn't
the,
they say the
not
same
the
thing about
typical
Von Miller?
football player. Yeah, he's a he's
I
not as good as
take Von Miller at 32.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's not as good as Von Miller, but he's got some weird vibes to him. He's had some kind of checkered, like little things that have blipped up on the radar in the past. He went on like a weird Twitter meltdown a few years ago when Brian Kelly was playing him out of position.
Lincoln Riley apparently just tweeted out a picture of a Cardinals hat. I'm seeing that on the monitor.
I've been telling you for 2 months that Kyler Murray's going to the Cardinals.
Look, I get that. And look, if they can get for Rosen tomorrow, if the return is the same in a trade either way, whatever. Yeah. I just don't see why a team would give up as much for Rosen after the Cardinals draft Kyler, because then the Cardinals are more desperate to trade him. You know, the Cardinals have to trade him.
To be honest with you, I don't think that the Cardinals are getting very many good offers for Rosen.
Would not surprise me. So maybe Rosen's value, maybe I'm overmarketing.
In general, I don't think that
whatever the
baseline
is, whatever that baseline is, whether it's a first, whether it's a fifth,
I think that
won't that baseline come down?
I think that their hope is, and that's what I said to you off the air, is that their hope is that they're going to be able to get a desperate team to make them an offer at the top of the second round, a team that misses out on all the of the first round quarterbacks that go tonight, and you see a team like Washington or the Giants, or maybe at the end of the draft, a team like the Patriots or the Los Angeles Chargers have really been in the Rosen sweepstakes from everything that we've heard. Maybe one of those teams gets a little bit of cold feet and they're like, "Oh crap, we got to go get a quarterback," and it ends up being Rosen. They end up getting a higher pick than they would have. They're going to get, in my gut tells me that they're going to get at most 2 picks for Rosen, and the best pick that they're going to get is a second round
pick. Okay, and I mean we'll know in 15 minutes, 20 minutes here.
Yeah.
Question in from Nikolai. There's markedly lower leaks this year of who's picking who. Are teams more secretive, or is the league purposely withheld information?
So the league has done
it's probably a little bit of both.
The league
has
done a really good job, and they've told the guys at NFL Network and at ESPN, so Schefter and Rap Sheet obviously being the 2 biggest ones, that they really want to make this prime time special.
Right.
You know, they really
not
want
like the schedule.
Not right. They really want it to kind of be something that people have to tune in and to watch to figure things out. To everybody's credit, they've done a really nice job of keeping things quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time that we got 2 minutes.
Oh no, we're not going to find out.
I
mean, this is going to come down to the last couple of seconds here.
What kind of suit is Kyler wearing?
He's wearing a Arizona Cardinals almost red pink.
No, it's pink. Suit. That is straight up pink. The Cardinals do not wear that. The Cardinals only wear that color in October.
It's pink.
They only wear, or not even anymore. They don't do the breast cancer awareness month. All right, get your questions in. We're gonna wrap this up. You want to stay on through the first pick and then maybe see where we're at?
Yeah, we could see if this pick comes down quickly. We can certainly do that.
All right, so hit us with your questions in the chat. They're getting Alex Barth along with Evan Lazar. We are live. We are at Gillette Stadium. We are in Foxborough.
When they make Kyler the first pick, there's going to be a lot of people on Twitter saying "I told you so." You know, I mean,
you do owe me one from the Bruins the other night. Like I do have one.
No, it's not even just you. It's just I think a lot of people have kind of said, you know, we think it's Kyler, but maybe it's not Kyler.
You have to understand.
Everybody that works in the league or there's a reporter like us have been saying for 2 months, it's Kyler, it's Kyler, it's Kyler.
But you have to understand the skepticism in that they have a top 10 quarterback. The only situation I can remember that's somewhat similar to this is 2011, and the Panthers had invested a pick in Jimmy Clausen in the high second round pick in Jimmy Clausen, and then took Cam Newton the next year, first overall, which. I mean, and even there
I
was
believe
a
that
40
it's
spot
the
difference
Colts
between where they
in
took
the
Lawson
80s. I think the Colts in the 1980s took quarterbacks in the first round in back-to-back
back years. Is
and
the last
that's
team
the
to do it.
last time to do it.
Yeah. So again, like outside of that Panthers one, I really couldn't think of
Yeah.
any other examples
No,
of that happening.
it's an unprecedented move, but again, it's about upgrading.
And it's a new coach, it's a new regime, and that's why they're doing it.
Right. Yeah, it's about upgrading, and also that too. Listen, one of the biggest things about Cliff Kingsbury, not to get like all schemy on you for a second, but one of the biggest things about Cliff Kingsbury's system is that he wants to play 11 on 11. What that means is the quarterback has to be a weapon, right? Yep. The quarterback has to be a weapon with his legs. He doesn't want to play 10 on 11 with the pocket passer because his scheme doesn't run as smoothly as it does with a guy that's mobile. So Kyler is a guy that could really open
Kyler's
up that
a better
entire
fit for
scheme.
him, and we know that, and that's the reason that we're having this. I think if Drew Lock was the consensus number one, we wouldn't be having this conversation. No. They'd be picking, Quinnen Williams or trading down or whatever. Nikolai wants to know, Evan, this is directly at you. So, thanks, Nikolai. I guess I'm not sure.
Thank you.
And if you had to pick this is why it's for you.
Yeah.
If you had to pick an offensive tackle for the Patriots, who would it be and where do you pick him?
Dalton Risner as early as they want.
Okay.
I mean, I don't care if they pick him at 32. I really don't. This guy is one of those guys that, listen, it takes a lot to kind of fit in here. We know that, it takes a special kind of guy. This is a guy that's going to fit in directly into the Patriot way, into the Patriot system. We talked to him at the Combine, and I stood by him for a few minutes, and he rattled off every single person in the room with every single team that he's met with up until that point. The GM, Bill Belichick was there. The GM, Nick Caserio, was there. The head scouting, director was there. This guy, you know what I mean? Like by name, identifying these people by name. He's like a senator. He was like holding court. It was unbelievable. The other thing, little unknown fact about him is that his mentor and his idol is Nate Solder. All right, so there's another Patriots connection.
Could be a Giants connection, too, and they may be looking for offensive line. I don't know that he's going to go that high, but they may be looking.
The only kind of hesitation about him is I 100% think he's a tackle. I know some people have kind of projected him inside to a guard.
Yeah.
I 100% think he's a tackle.
Why is it that every guard in this draft, every college guard projects as an NFL tackle, and every college tackle projects as an NFL? Why? But I know that some years there's certain guys that do that, but it feels like every single guy in this draft on the offensive line is moving positions at the next level.
Is that a lot of these people that are evaluating talent don't understand what exactly are the technical flaws in a tackle that they want to project to move inside the guard. So a tackle that doesn't have the best movement skills or doesn't have the best first step out of his kick slide, or Dalton Risner, who has a slight little hitch in his kick slide out of his pass set, they're just like, oh, let's just move him inside the guard because that be easier to.
But I feel like even the other way, I feel like there's guys who are hearing about being guards that are moving out. I feel like everybody in this draft is moving.
Yeah, it does feel like that a little bit. I think Dalton Risner is. I said it in my mock draft when I mocked him to the Patriots. You put him next to Shaq Mason on the right side of the Patriots offensive line, and you got two bulldozers. I mean, you got two guys that are just going to run people the hell over, and I think that's exactly what the Patriots want on their offensive line.
All right, we just got the Nick Chelsea bump. Shout out, Nick. So I think we're going to have to stay on because we're about to get some people. So to everybody just joining, welcome. Alex Barth with Evan Lazar. We are live. We are at Gillette Stadium. We are in Nick just said, it's like the situation where this is sort of the
this is the media
football situation.
This is the media situation.
This is the media room at Gillette. Welcome to where we spend most of our time.
Yeah.
So we'll stay live for a bit. We'll take all your questions, put those in the comments. We are powered tonight by BetOnline.ag. You got it's probably the early odds are probably a little too late to put in. I think.
Yeah. Maybe we could get like a first Patriots pick or something like that.
It's probably too late to bet on do the Patriots trade up or trade out. Well, okay, let's do this. We kind of already talked about it, but trade up, trade down. The consensus seems to be whatever it is, they're not picking at 32.
If that's the consensus, I think they'll pick at 32 if the player that they want with their first pick is going to come off the board before their second pick, right? So if they're going to have a guy that they feel like they are not going to be able to position themselves tomorrow night to take, then they're going to stay at 32 and take that guy. I think the other kind of possibility, if you will, is if another one of their guys that has a high grade is, let's say Noah Fant, let's say it's Clelin Ferrell from Clemson, is starting to slide. down the board, and they can kind of move up just a couple of spots. Not talking about moving all the way up to the
right.
top
Yeah,
10.
when we say the Patriots are moving up, there was a report out that they're going to move up, or a thought that they were going to move up as high as 8. That's not going to happen for a number of reasons, and the draft would be over by the time we go through all of that.
Right, and so I think that the biggest thing is that they could move up slightly if one of their guys that they really like starts to fall. Yeah. I think that the biggest thing, though, is that can they get that guy? Can they get Irv Smith? Can they get A.J. Brown? Can they get one of those dudes tomorrow night? And if they can, I think that they'll 100% do that.
ESPN's doing a top 200. I don't remember them ever doing that.
Oh, really?
That's impressive. So, and I saw a name up there on the screen, so I kind of want to talk about him because he's a guy that interests me.
Sure.
Ed Oliver, the first ever 5-star recruit to not go to a Power 5 conference. Yeah. And it created this mystique around him, I think.
Yeah.
And don't get me, very good player. Should absolutely go tonight. Should probably go pretty high tonight. But
should be a top 10 pick.
How is that going to affect him? I mean, he played at Houston. Houston was a good team, but this is the first time we've seen a guy with this perceived talent level not go up against the kind of competition top 5, top 10 picks normally go up against. A Carson Wentz comes to mind. He was, forget Power 5. He wasn't a true D1 player.
Yeah.
But with Ed Oliver, to me, is there going to be a little more of a learning curve for him than a guy like, say, Quinnen Williams, who was at Alabama?
There could be. I mean, obviously, I have Quinnen Williams ranked ahead of Ed Oliver.
Right. No, Williams is a better player, but
I think the biggest thing is that with Oliver is that it's really a modern day NFL thing than it is about a Power 5 thing, in my opinion. The fact that Ed Oliver is even in the top 10 conversation is solely because of guys like Aaron Donald, who have kind of made a living as smaller defensive tackles on their pass rushing abilities. I don't think Ed Oliver is as good as Aaron Donald. That's the guy that he gets comped to a whole lot because of that. I think he's more closer to somebody like a Geno Atkins, who's still an all-pro player, still a fantastic football player, but not quite as good as somebody like an Aaron Donald. So I think that, listen, the talent is there. The first thing that you notice is that this combination of first step, get quickness or get off, and the power behind his bad pads when he makes that first step is really just like turns him into kind of a wrecking ball in the middle of the defensive line. And then also you might have a little bit of flexibility with him too to kick him like what Wade Phillips has done with Aaron Donald, where he's played a little bit more outside shaded over towards the tackle.
All right, this is kind of a dumb question. This is kind of a dumb talking point, but it's the draft. It's the silly season, right?
Yeah.
What's the most surprising thing we see tonight? And by you saying it, obviously it's not surprising, but there's always that one thing that happens, right? That we're all just like, what the hell? What is that, right? Is it a pick? Is it a trade? Is there anything that, people aren't looking at closely enough tonight? Maybe it's Patriots taking a corner in the first round.
Yeah, it could be. I think that, it would have been, to me, Daniel Jones going as high as he's going to go, but I think that one's kind of out there at this point.
He's Tannehill. I don't understand what everybody keeps saying. I don't even know about that.
I see him as like a Nick Foles.
The Alex Smith comparison just totally escapes me.
So
I don't
why
see
I
that
say
at
Nick
all.
Foles is because I see a guy that within the right scheme, like an RPO heavy scheme like he ran at Duke, he can excel on kind of those easy reads and quick decision making, get the ball out of his hands, and make a lot of one-on-one matchups, which is exactly what Doug Peterson did and what Chip Kelly did for Nick Foles. I think that the thing about Daniel Jones that we all kind of worry about is the arm strength, the decision making, and kind of a tendency to hold on to the ball in the pocket when he isn't getting those designed first read looks. When he's not running an RPO, when he's not running a play action, he's not getting force fed, this is the guy you should throw the ball to. And if you're not throwing the ball, you kind of have like an A and or B option in an RPO, right? Once he starts to kind of have to go through an NFL style progression, the game really freezes up on him. Yeah.
And I mean, there were plays where I watched and you obviously watch more than me, but I remember seeing a couple of plays where his first read clearly wasn't there, and he just kind of sat there in the pocket like, all right, sack me. You coming? You gonna end this play? What's going on?
And also, to his defense, though, he played in an offense that was horrible. The supporting cast around him, the receivers were horrible. The offensive line was horrible.
But look, wherever he ends up, it's a team. If he is picked high, if you're a team picking him high, you don't have a lot of weapons. You're counting on him to make plays,
and you also have to really create a scheme around him that he's going to succeed in. Because I really like his fit in Washington. To be honest with you, if he's going to go as high as people are saying he's going to go, and that Jay Gruden offense, I think that he is a nice fit as kind of the point guard trigger finger. Yeah. I think he has a little bit of Kirk Cousins in him. And I think Nick Foles, Kirk Cousins, we're kind of talking about the same type of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a nice fit for him. If he goes to the Giants, I think it's really going to be difficult for him because he doesn't have Odell anymore. He doesn't have one of the better
I still don't
offensive
understand
lines
how the
in the
Giants
league.
don't take Haskins if he's on the board.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I would take, but
I mean,
I'm
that's
not
the
ready
fun
to
of
board.
tonight. Just because
Yeah.
we would do it doesn't mean
Yeah.
he'll do it. I would Jones for me. I think it's Denver, just because the height, and that's clearly all John Elway seems to care about.
Although it seems to me like Denver would be more Drew Lock's destination, like a big armed,
but again,
tall.
Like the only, and this sounds, I know I'm totally oversimplifying things again. Oh, Nashville is nice tonight.
Yeah,
they're having some fun.
So Alex is so mad he's not there.
The over under, I kind of am.
Yeah.
The over under for booing Roger was 36 seconds.
Yeah.
Still going.
Go. So the question
all
is,
the players behind him. Wait, hang on, I got to see this.
If this pick is getting traded, then we're gonna get deep into the clock.
Oh, then we're staying on for like another 10 minutes.
We're gonna deepen the clock. If this pick is Kyler Murray, then we're gonna find out real fast.
Yeah,
that's really what it boils down to.
They're still booing him. That's pretty good.
I mean, listen.
No, I would say so it's funny. I actually have those quarterbacks switch. It just not necessarily by fit, but by what I think will happen. My prediction is Jones to the Broncos, and I actually think Drew Lock would be. I think Washington would be lucky to have him. I think that's what ends up, and I think he's a great fit there.
Drew Lock is a
confusing
one for me because to me, I think that Drew Lock is further along than Josh Allen is as a quarterback.
He was at the end of last year's draft. I remember we did the show last year, and at the end of the first round, when the Patriots didn't take a quarterback, I remember saying, Drew Lock is the name you have to keep an eye on now. Yeah, he's going to be the 1-1 next year. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way.
There's some trusted mock drafters that have Drew Lock going all the way down into the late 20s and early 30s.
You'd love to see the Patriots trade up. If they can get, I haven't talked about Drew Lock to the Patriots because I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, he doesn't have as great of an arm as Josh Allen does, but he played against better competition.
Yeah.
He, I think, has more on his tape that is operating within an NFL structure.
I think the football IQ is higher.
Yeah, Josh Allen is the type of guy last year who was really operating either in two ways. He was operating in a very RPO-heavy scheme, or he was operating kind of schoolyard, playground type stuff when the play broke down and really, making a lot of throws on the move. I think Drew Lock was, a lot more polished and a lot more pro-ready from the pocket than Josh Allen was.
So we were talking, we didn't hear it. They weren't just booing Roger Goodell.
Oh.
Marcus Mariota just got booed in Nashville.
Oh, really?
You know what? Good for them. Very disappointing end to the season. That team's kind of been underperformed for the last couple. I like him too. He's good. He's a good. Everything I've heard, he's a good guy. But those are real fans. Teams underperformed. Quarterback's going to take the blame. Good for them. Good. That's kind of been considered a fair weather. Oh, so they're giving out some season tickets. Oh, somebody's getting season tickets for 100 years. I kind of want to listen. I don't know if I can win this.
Hey, listen.
Somebody from the Giants got it. 100 years of.
We might as well talk about it.
Get ready for 100 years of Daniel Jones.
Marcus Mariota, if he ends up not being the Titans' future, I love him here. I love that.
All right, fair enough.
I really do. He's an accurate quarterback, a guy that can throw the ball down the field pretty accurately from the pocket. I think he's a decent mental processor. One of the areas that you always look for quarterbacks with mental processing and processing speed is in the red zone. And Marcus Mariota has been one of the better red zone quarterbacks over the last 3 or 4 years since he's been in the league, whatever it's been.
All right, let's return to a couple questions against Alex Barth and Evan Lazar. We're at Gillette Stadium, powered by BetOnline.ag, taking your questions, getting ready for the first round of the NFL draft. A couple quick ones here. Dark horse to draft a quarterback, the first round, whenever. The Miami Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins are positive. I thought you were asking me that question. I was going to say,
are the Dolphins a dark horse?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think the big thing about the Dolphins is almost similar to the Cardinals last year, is that you can draft a quarterback this year, and if you suck, then you can just draft Tua or Justin Herbert next year, and you do the whole thing all over again.
I like the school of thought of going the other way. Get everything else this year, and then next year you can plug the quarterback in and go.
I like that too. I think that's the better way to go. But I do also think that there's something to be said of getting a quarterback this year. You're probably not going to win any more games with the quarterback you're going to get this year. You have to remember
going to play. They're going to be coming. They're going to be kind of approaching it from a Patriots point of view with all those Patriots coaches down there.
That would make more sense.
That's not what Belichick wouldn't. I don't think.
So Arizona's on the clock.
They are officially on the clock.
We're going to find out very soon.
Yeah. If you go, if you draft a quarterback, if you spend heavily on a quarterback and then you do it again the next year, that's a waste of value.
Yeah.
So, and then another question, and this is interesting. We kind of talked about
the other team. I just really quickly.
Go ahead. Yep.
The Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Do not sleep on them.
I don't know first
quarterback.
round though. I don't know what they're
Don't sleep on it.
You know,
Listen,
in the first round.
I don't sleep on it. That's all I'm saying. I think that the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers is 35 years old.
They do
He's not a young
need to
pup
start thinking
anymore.
about a quarterback. You're not wrong with that.
Same age that they drafted Aaron Rodgers to replace Brett Favre.
I could
35.
see a Jimmy Garoppolo situation, maybe the second or third. I think they need to win now, and they struggled last year.
I think it all depends.
They really did.
You know, we've been talking about it. It all depends really on who falls and where the quarterback board kind of falls. If the quarterback board falls to a point where Will Grier is like off the board, you know, at the end of the 30s, then you're going to have to start talking about quarterbacks.
Okay. Biggest need for not who they're going to take first, but Patriots' biggest need, regardless of, you know, who's on the board, this, that, or whatever.
Pass catcher. Whether it's a tight end or a wide receiver, I don't think it really matters. To me, and I understand people that want to see them, you know, kind of take a bona fide stud at 32 at the wide receiver position. I would kind of rather them kind of load up in some of the positions that aren't as deep early in the draft. And this is a very deep wide receiver class. In the third or fourth round, you're looking at some really good prospects still.
It gets trickier for tight end, though, because tight end is the exact opposite.
Right. So if you take a tight end early, I think that if you take a stud pass rusher early, that's going to be a lot more value for you. I think the biggest thing for me with the wide receiver position...
First three picks, what did we say on Twitter last week? Pass catcher, pass rusher, quarterback.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that when you look at it, is A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown, you can put N'Keal Harry in there if you want to. Are those guys that much worse than McCole Hardman or Miles Boykin or any of the guys that you're going to get tomorrow night? And I don't think I think the answer is no. I think that those guys are kind of in the same ballpark. Talking to people, there's a really big difference, you know, between a lot of people's wide receiver boards. Who they have at 1, some people might have at 8. You know, it's that kind of class where there's a lot of guys grouped together.
Yeah, they're already showing Kyler Murray highlights up here on ESPN. So I don't know. I mean, I think we know sort of what's more or less what's happening with that. But so this is just an interesting question. Just came in. Ryan Izzo, how does he factor in this year? Tight end they took late in the draft last year. It was on IR all year from Florida State.
Dwayne Allen.
And I mean, that's what I've heard, is that he's a blocking tight end.
Very good inline blocking tight end. Probably one of the better guys in the class last year at that. Not going to add much to you as a passing receiver, pass catcher, but I think that the biggest thing is that they didn't get to add Dwayne Allen. Right. Now they're going to be able to get that same exact kind of production where they put 2 tight ends on the field, really try to run some teams over, I think, with Ryan Izzo.
And I mean, they actually have some depth at that position. They do.
That's the thing, is they have the depth. They just don't have the top guy.
Right.
They have Austin Seferian-Jenkins. They have Matt Lacoste. They have Ryan Izzo. They have Jacob Hollister.
So are we overstating that maybe as a need?
I think we're overstating it in terms of them double dipping at the position. I think they need the number 1 guy. They need the stud.
But is there a better?
They can move around the formation and.
But who's to say Lacoste or Jenkins can't emerge as that guy?
I don't think they can. I think that those guys, I think that Lacoste ideally is your 3rd tight end. Austin Seferian-Jenkins ideally is your 2nd tight end. And then you put a number 1 ahead of them. And
so you don't even think Izzo makes the team then?
I think Izzo could make the team as a 4th tight end. I think he's battling with it with Lacoste and Seferian-Jenkins. And if there's an injury to one of those
two of
guys,
those 3 from that group, and join.
Jacob Hollister's in a tough spot. I think that Jacob Hollister's time to shine was kind of
he had a chance last year, right? He had his chance, and I was really high on him. I think I was one of the few people who was really high on him. He didn't make it, but I would agree in that. All right, you said if that clock ticks, the pick might be getting traded. 540.
I
540.
I still think it's. I'm not even sweating over here.
All right, again, keep the questions coming. We'll stay on through the first pick, maybe a little longer.
This is like really impressive to me, though, that no one has tipped this yet.
Well, I don't think anybody's tipping picks because the NFL Network guys aren't, ESPN guys aren't, Jeff Howe isn't.
Yeah, I don't think the Athletic guys. I think all those guys were told to. I think everybody was kind of told to be quiet.
I don't know. Jeff said he was doing it.
No,
Jeff just wasn't doing it.
Yeah, Jeff said he wasn't doing it. I think the biggest thing is that tomorrow night, is that when the training wheels come off? Like, is that when all the restrictions come off and you see a lot of these guys? Or maybe even tonight, does it take... Remember a few years ago when Shams started tweeting out all the NBA picks and started tipping picks, and then Woj got pissed off, so Woj started doing it?
No, but do you remember, maybe this was the same draft, maybe it was a different... No, because this was the most recent NBA draft. Yeah. They couldn't tip the picks, so they got really creative about how they said it. So, for instance, with this one, the Cardinals are considering taking Kyler Murray first overall, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I think we could see some of that.
all it takes is one person, because if one
Yeah.
person starts tipping, everybody else is going to say,
Yeah.
well, F that,
Yeah.
I need to be in it too. So
Yep.
I never liked it. I never did, because I enjoy seeing it. I enjoy the pageantry of it. I know you're going to say it's classic me.
No,
but
it is classic you, but I think it's nice for this first pick. Like, I think it's nice.
no,
for,
it's nice at the first pick.
I
I
think
hate when you know
after
the
that-
first pick like 2 weeks out.
After that, I think we can get the ball rolling.
Right. Well, because once you know the first pick, then the second normally comes out, then the third.
Yeah.
Are they going?
So there's nobody on the phone.
Cardinals War Room looks pretty calm.
I think that this is 100% showmanship right here. This is all for the league.
This is the
to have
biggest
some
problem. This is the biggest problem with the draft. They know who they're going to take, and they're just sitting there. So what?
I think the biggest thing
we're going to be here till 12:30, 1 o'clock.
This is the first draft in a long time where there hasn't necessarily been a consensus number one pick that we've known about. I think Kyler has been the consensus for a while, but it started kind of wavering a little bit. And last year, if you remember, a few hours before the draft, the day of, basically everybody knew it was going to be Baker. A lot of people were wrong, thought it was Sam Darnold like a week out.
Right.
And then the day of, it came out that it was Baker Mayfield. Everybody kind of knew, I would say, by 2 o'clock that it was Baker Mayfield. So we'll see what happens with this pick. But I think that this is a nice job by the NFL to get the tension up and kind of get people to watch.
Yep, we've still got nothing. We're waiting on a baseball player to go first overall. I think at this point, I really think he'll be back in baseball at some point.
Oh,
I do. Just the body type and the guaranteed money.
You're just like anti-Kyler.
It's not that I'm anti-Kyler Murray, but here, tell me that this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, they're on the phone with somebody.
He plays 4 years of football.
Yeah.
Gets his money, bypasses minor leagues and single A, and taking buses across upstate New York.
It's not even just that.
Then he gets to go to baseball, get the massive guaranteed money contract, no minor leagues.
It's not even just that. The problem with baseball, and this is my feelings on baseball, but the problems with baseball is that he is not going to be anywhere near the marketing star that he's going to be in the NFL.
But he's still going to make more money.
Alex, even if he's Mike Trout, he's not going to be a bigger deal than he is if he's an average.
But if he's
NFL
always hurt in the NFL, what if he's always hurt?
I mean, maybe
that's not necessarily true.
That is 100% true. Baseball doesn't market any of their athletes properly. But not a single one of them.
But he still has to be good in football. Nobody's marketing RG3 right now.
Well, yeah, obviously. What
if he's RG3?
But I'm just saying that the marketing, if he goes number one right now, all right, the endorsements and the marketing that he's going to get is going to be off the charts compared to what he would get if he went and played baseball next year. It's not even going to be close. He's going to make millions on millions, tens of millions of dollars from Nike or somebody like that as soon as this pick is announced. He's not going to get that at baseball.
No, but that's why he's going to do football, get all that money, and then he can go play football. He can go play baseball, not have to deal with the physical toll. Contract's fully guaranteed.
Right. I mean, I guess at that point it depends.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
If he ends up not being that great, if he ends up being Russell Wilson, he's staying in football.
Naturally, but if he plays 4 years in the NFL, gets the rookie contract, he can then jump to baseball, not have to do the whole minor league system, make a bunch of guaranteed money. And as Marcus Vick once said, it's all about that guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Classic Marcus Vick line.
I'm just telling you that it's also a lot about the stardom. It's a lot about the stardom.
That's fair. And he did say football is his true love, which
you can be Aaron Judge in New York, you can be Mike Trout in LA. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Fair. In the grand scheme of things. Star, though. I would you want that millions? I would. Millions. I think he wants to be.
Well, he's going to get millions either way. There's a difference between millions and being a star. Either way, he gets millions.
But he's going to get more millions from being a football player. At least right up front.
They're going to run this thing all the way down. Oh, they just reset the clock.
Yeah.
I'd assume that means the pick is in.
Yeah, I think that
I'm not waiting another 10 minutes. I think at a certain point,
this is ridiculous.
At a certain point, just move on to the Niners. Let's go. They missed it. Let the Niners pick. Let the Niners take Kyler.
How funny would it be if pick is in?
Pick is in. I mean, it happens from time to. It was the Ravens 2-3 years ago.
The Vikings missed the pick. I know that.
Yeah, and then they just you kick the can down the road. How many cornerbacks going in the first round from Nikolai?
How many cornerbacks? I think that's an interesting position. I would think that we get to 2. I think that Greedy has a good chance, and I think Jojuan Williams has a good chance.
What about Rock Ya-Sin? He kind of
Rock Ya-Sin. Yep. Yeah, he's
a great name. Might be the best name in the draft.
He could be the first corner off the board.
Rock Ya-Sin.
Look out for the Pittsburgh
Him or Will
Steelers
Jordan Humphrey? Who was the best name in the draft?
Rock. Well, Rock
You
is
think
also
so?
just a way better football player.
I don't know, but I didn't ask you who's the better football player because we're waiting on the Cardinals here. We got to get creative. I don't know, Lil Jordan.
Yeah,
That's a great name.
Rock Ya-Sin to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, is kind of like an unwritten secret at this point. Also,
it is and it isn't because it would be a great pick for the Steelers, but because it would make so much sense, the Steelers are just going to take an offensive lineman instead because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Although I will say, underrated like area of focus, I think Steelers might be looking heavily at a running back, like relatively early. I know they have James Conner, but
here we go.
Let's see it.
Kyler Murray and Arizona
He's still getting booed.
Start the Josh Rosen to the Patriots rumor mill here.
Let's see. CLNS Live Draft powered by BetOnline.
Kyler Murray.
There it is. All right. You want to tell me I was wrong? Go ahead.
I just feel like, listen, we've all been saying it for months. There's some people that have better sourcing than I do that have been saying it since January that this guy is going to be the number one pick. And everybody, just because they did a nice job of kind of hiding it, and kind of keeping it secret.
I mean, look, there was drama there.
There was drama. They did a nice job.
He didn't hug his mom first. Somebody just texted me. He did not. So people just lost a lot of money. I'll figure out who it was. Let us all react, and then we'll get back to you guys. But fill up some questions. DeAndre Baker. Somebody just said DeAndre Baker ?
I love DeAndre Baker as a player. I think that there's some hesitation from the league on him, though, for whatever reason. I don't know. But from everything that I've kind of talking to people, that it sounds like DeAndre Baker is probably going to be a top 2 and not a top second round pick and not a first round pick, although I think that he's a borderline first round talent. That's the interesting thing about the Patriots, though, just to kind of make this Patriot centric with the cornerback position. I know everybody's freaking out that they might take a cornerback, but when you really start to make the board and try to make a draft board and a mock draft, so to speak, when you get to that 32nd pick, DeAndre Baker, Greedy Williams, there's a lot of good corners still on the board that haven't been picked yet. And then when you start to look at some of the other positions, you're talking about drafting, the 5th or the 6th best defensive lineman in the class or the top corner in the draft.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? So it's very tempting when you try to do these mock drafts, when you do the mock draft for all 32 teams in the first round, when you get to 32, there's some really good corners still on the board, and it's tempting. It's tempting to take one of those guys.
And, I mean, it's such a tough position. So he hugged his dad first. Interesting. Okay.
Listen,
So where's Rosen going now? That's the question.
I personally think that Rosen ends up in a Los Angeles Charger. That's kind of
think so?
That's the team that I kind of have had a feeling with for a while, looking for the Phillip Rivers successor, similar, pocket passers that can succeed in similar ways. I think he fits out there in LA. I think he'd like to live there out in LA. Obviously, UCLA guy. I think that that's a nice fit for him in all walks of life. Now it sounds like.
So when do you? And we already kind of talked about it, but sort of just to go back, do you think that happens tonight? Do you think that happens tomorrow? Do you think it happens?
I think it'll happen tomorrow night,
okay.
Unless a team gets really desperate tonight and starts to get cold feet about one of these quarterbacks and ends up swapping Rosen instead of picking, let's say, Drew Lock or Will Grier or something like that. I think that right now, though. There's a lot of rumblings about these next 8 or 9 picks here that there's going to be some moves made in the 2 to 10 range. So we'll see what ends up happening. I think there's going to be some trades coming up here soon. I think the Jets probably have gotten rid of their pick. There's some other teams that maybe have gotten rid of their pick that have been trying to trade out for a while. The Detroit Lions, another one. We'll see what happens, but that's kind of, the trade winds are blowing right now.
All right, again, this CLNS Media Draft. It's not even a preview show anymore.
Yeah, we're into the draft now.
So I'll say that I know there's some food over there.
Yes.
And whatever, and we're going. Do you want to roll through? Do you want to take a break and we can come back on later? What are you thinking? We'll do this live on the air. You really get to see the behind the scenes and all this.
We can always jump back on, right?
We can always jump back on.
Let's take a little bit of a break here because I think we got a long night.
Yeah, we got a long night ahead of us. So here's what we'll do. We'll jump back on, say after the 10th pick.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. Although pending, so the only time we can't be on is this channel will actually have the Bruins post game full live from the Garden. Bruins are up 1-0, by the way, 8 minutes to go in the second period. Mike Petralia, Sierra Goodwill are down there at Bruins CLNS on Twitter if you want to keep posted with that. So we'll try to jump on before that window closes, before the Bruins postgame, so we can get on one more time, and then we'll come on after Bruins postgame as well, at Patriots CLNS on Twitter, to stay posted of when we'll be coming on, where we'll be going, this, that, whatever. Of course, we'll take more questions. People want us to stay now. We'll be back soon. We will be back soon. And
what do they want us to talk about?
I don't know. Look, we'll be back soon. We'll be on Twitter in the meantime. Keep it posted.
I need some fuel in my.
Yeah, we need to fuel up. We'll be back at Patriots CLNS on Twitter. And I hear people. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. We'll be back soon, guys. In the meantime, enjoy the draft.